Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to the April 8th, 2025 meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Newcastle. The board has been in executive session and I would now like to ask for a motion to open the work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you and welcome everybody. We are going to start off our work session with a discussion of a proposal for a town code amendment to the MFR.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's some noise outside, so we're going to interrupt for a moment. Okay, so we're going to begin with a discussion on the proposal for a town code amendment to the MFR-C density incentive and other zoning requirements. And this discussion will be based on a proposal brought to us by our Director of Planning, Sabrina Charney Hull. And so my understanding is that the intent behind the proposal is to fix some discrepancies between the text and the chart in the law and to fix some inconsistencies. So Sabrina, could you please explain, the purpose and how the language accomplishes that purpose?
Sure, so good evening everyone. Within the town code today, there are two multifamily districts, one for the Chappaqua Hamlet and one for the Millwood Hamlet. Within the provisions in the Chappaqua Hamlet, there is a list of what's called density incentives. So if you do certain things or you provide certain things that the town has deemed worthy of increasing your density, then you can increase your density. You cannot exceed the height limitations, you cannot, you must meet parking requirements, you must meet stormwater requirements, but the density incentives as they are written are very confusing, and it is if when they were written, they weren't thought out properly to really make them function the way they're supposed to function as far as increasing somebody's ability to put a higher density of units. So instead of 2 units, if you do certain things, you make them handicapped accessible, you rent them instead of require ownership to them, you can increase your density no more than 100%. So you could put 2 additional units on the property, but you can't go higher than what you can have without the incentives. So there's provisions within this code to restrain the developments on the site, but there's clarifications needed to allow the incentives to function as they were intended. In addition, there's conflicts within the code. The one section of the code requires, for example, coverage limitations. Another section of that same code says there are no coverage requirements. There is also a 50-foot front yard setback required within the MFR-C district, which brings anything developed under this code out of character with the existing street wall in the Chappaqua Hamlet. So there's some suggestions to change that to 0 to be consistent with the existing footprint or the street wall of the buildings within the Chappaqua Hamlet. So in my write-up to you, and council has helped me with this, we've actually taken the chapter of the code and clarified with strikeouts and added language as well as a calculation table column to show how an incentive would be applied. And there's really 6 incentives that require editing. One of those, due to a legislative change that the town board made in 2022, you required in all commercial districts, residential housing to have a 10% minimum AFFH requirement. That previously was an incentive under the MFR-C, so we struck that from the incentive table, and we actually incentivized additional AFFH requirements. So if you wanted to provide 15% instead of the 10%, you would get a measure of density bonus. So, yeah, I don't know if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
When was it originally drafted, if you know?
I wanna say the original law was drafted in the late 1990s.
Either way, long time ago.
Okay.
A while
So
ago,
I'm-
yes.
I guess one of my first questions is, so what prompted the review of, I mean, do we have something
There have been
beyond,
sev-
do you have indication that
Yeah, there have
someone wants to develop
Yeah, there have
a
been
piece of
several
property?
indications from various property owners in the hamlet that have come in wanting to use these incentives. And when I sit down and try to confirm the math in every single instance, I can run it a different way based on the way this is written and making assumptions that I am not comfortable to make. And so the changes that are being proposed provide a more prescriptive procedure as to how to apply the incentives.
Okay, so one of the things that I understood, I mean, we had a very brief discussion about the goal of this, is my understanding was that there would not be an increase in density. But as I look at this more closely, I have some questions about that.
Sure.
So
It's not an increase
The-
in density based on what is existing, what is allowed in the code today, right? This is not a new density provision, these density provisions have been within the code.
Well, wait, because the 50 to 0 would be a change, right?
Yes, but that's not a density change, that's a location of the building on the property.
Right. About the
okay,
lot coverage.
That's a different issue. I mean, I have questions about that too, but I just wanna stick with the density first. So
Sure.
I'm looking at the first incentive feature, which is adding units for low to moderate income families.
Yep, additional.
So we wanna incentivize that.
Mhm.
So the old language had, it certainly is ambiguous, the current language is certainly ambiguous. But my question about the new language is that it doesn't contain a maximum in the way that the old language did. Well, I shouldn't say the old language, it's the current language, which increases, tell me if this
So
is
it-
correct,
Go
the
ahead.
current language increases the density by 2% for each 1% of
Up to a
addition-
maximum of 30% for 1%.
1% of an increase in units or square footage.
Yet to be,
Yeah.
for your determination, that is the problem.
So no, I'm asking about the current language.
Yes, and I'm telling you right now, I
So
can run it
that
three
is
ways.
So that is part of the lack of clarity there. We don't
Correct.
know.
I don't
don't know
know
what
if it's
it's
just
stating.
about the units based on the base permitted density or if it's based on the square footage of the permitted density.
I see that. So now, but that current language does have a maximum. Whatever it might mean, it does say up
An
to a
increase
maximum.
up to 50%.
Up to a maximum total increase of 50%. Now, the proposed language doesn't have a maximum total. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm reading it is that you could increase the density in perpetuity. There is no,
You,
there's no
in the
maximum.
rest of the code, there are limitations. You can't increase your density more than 100% of what your existing density is. So if you can by right, without any incentive, put 2 units on a property, you can only put 2 more units on that property.
So this language doesn't state that, but you're saying that
There's
those.
other provisions within the
It's elsewhere.
MFR-C code, there's other requirements. I didn't give you the whole code here, this is just a section we were
Right, but I
editing.
don't like to see sections that present inconsistencies or ambiguities, so I would like somehow for the language to indicate that there is a maximum and what that might be.
we can do a circular reference back to the provision in this
yes.
code where it says you cannot increase your density beyond 100% of what is your base density.
Okay,
No problem, and we can actually include that as a statement under A where it talks about the incentives, we can put a provision in the table that says these density in any event cannot be increased beyond what is allowed in section such of this section.
Yes, I'd like to
Okay,
see
we can
that.
definitely add that.
So there's no way for us to tell whether the proposed language increases the density more than the current language,
It doesn't.
but we can't tell what the current language is providing. I mean, we can't calculate it.
No, I can't.
So, okay, so we're basically starting anew here.
In some instances. In
Yeah,
some
because
in-
we can't tell what the current language is
Correct.
requiring.
Yeah.
But-
So I just wanna make clear what we're actually doing. So
Okay,
we,
so we can go
we're
through
not-
each of the incentives, cause they're
Yeah.
different. So incentive 1, I could not calculate fairly for an applicant because I could calculate this several different ways given the way it is written existing. So we decided on looking at it as a whole, saying 15%, a 15% increase in density for an additional 10% of units calculated, and you base that on the lot size. So if you have 10,000 square feet, not even, if you have 8,000 square feet, if you can put 2 units on that 8,000 square feet, then, or you can put 1.5 units on that 8,000 square feet, because you can't take advantage given the size limitations of the units that are in this section of the code. If you get an additional 15% density increase, then on that 8,000, you add 15% to get 2 units instead of the 1.5 units.
But you still can't go up beyond what the
You
code.
can't go beyond 2 units.
we're gonna cross-reference
Yes,
to make sure
correct.
that that's very clear.
Yes.
Also, I wanna point out that we are making some value judgments here because the percentage is different for senior citizen apartments
Correct.
than it is for low to moderate income
And those
apartments.
correct, and those differences, we're looking at the way that the percentages were written in the code today and extrapolating. For senior citizen apartments in the existing code, it's 1% for each 2%, right? So if you had 2 units and 1% of those 2 units was gonna be senior, that's 50% of your 2 units.
So you're just,
So I
you're
made it
making it
20
higher because because the current language,
said
as
it was a
unclear
little
as it
bit-
is also making it higher. But it's a
Correct.
policy decision.
It
and-
is, you may
and so
decide
we
you only
can-
want it to be 10%.
Right, and just to be clear, I don't think we're anywhere near ready to bring this to public hearing because there's
Yeah, you need
more
to
to
feel
think about
comfortable.
than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
So we really need to think about this. And do we want to give less incentive for low to moderate income families than senior citizens, or do we wanna give them the same kind of
So if
incentive? So it's a policy decision.
are, and then before we even start to move on to the policy
Well,
decision.
I think that we've already seen that the current language is pretty much indecipherable. We can't, we can't make, as Sabrina's told us, we can't really calculate it
Right, but
accurately.
I'd kinda like to go I'd like to know each of the specific ones, if
Sabrina-
we're just looking at number 1, and they may all have different
Right, we're
types of
looking at number
inconsistent-
2 now because we,
Oh, then I have a
we
question on
see
number
that-
1.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Does the code define low/moderate income families?
It does in relation to your AFFH sections of the code.
Okay, I mean, this is a place where I would say the language would probably be consistent as well.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so we should put AFFH.
Well, we would go back to the code and cite that section of the code where it talks about the definition, it's not strictly AFFH.
Okay.
Sabrina, can you give me some information about what projects specifically?
I'd rather not mention the projects, I can tell you that there's at least 4 projects throughout the hamlet, property
Currently?
owners. currently property owners who've come in wanting to apply these density incentives.
They haven't made submitted
No, they have
formal
not.
applications, so
They
we
have not
we
submitted
wouldn't-
formal
right.
applications, this is all asking what they can and cannot do.
And that's where you're finding the
Well,
difficulty.
because they come in, we have what's called a pre-application meeting in my office before you come to the planning board with in a meeting for a subdivision or a site plan, and most often in the hamlet, it's a site plan because there's not a lot of subdivisions occurring. We conduct pre-application meetings where applicants come to us trying to, demonstrating what it is they would like to do. And that meeting consists of all key town staff meeting with the applicant and their team, really looking at what it is they wanna do and what are the steps that they need to go through in the town processes to accomplish what they're looking for. And that is before they even submit an application.
Okay, so I mean, we can go through all of the incentive features. We have apartments designed for handicapped persons, we have rental apartments.
Can we change that language?
You can
Yes.
change whatever you
I
like.
Yeah, this is an old law, so
Yeah.
yes, I agree, we should definitely change the language. We have rental apartments. We have we skipped the AFFH because that's now a requirement, not an incentive.
Correct.
And we have underground parking. Is that even possible in
Parking
town through
garages, yes.
King Street?
Depends where.
It means under the building.
Doesn't have to be underground.
Are there-
under the
right,
building.
It's
I mean-
underground or under building parking.
Under building, okay.
Again, this is the language that's there today. I tried to make as little changes as possible to keep it consistent. If you wanna change the language, you can. And then the
Okay.
numbers 6 through 10 are not being changed, though that is what the percentages in the code today are. And those are very easy to calculate with the exception of not knowing what they're attached to.
Okay, so it's much more than an exercise in clarification. These are real policy decisions that we have to make and we should make them thoughtfully. I would like to work with get the advice of the planning board as well on these changes and really think about it a little bit more.
So one of the processes that you have to go through to change laws, you do a referral to the planning board as well as Westchester County with your proposed legislation. So you should decide, your language changes and, what you would like the incentives to be, and then the planning board would review it as part of your referral process. Unless you wanna set a different work session meeting with them, that's your prerogative.
We might want a work session meeting with them because we'll have to make a decision. We'll have to make a board decision. And in order to do that, it might be helpful to get their input. Because after this meeting, we'll all go home and think about this, but we'll have to come back together again and have a discussion as to what we all think.
I'm gonna mention a verboten word here or some letters. This has nothing to do with, it is nothing involving the evilly, ugly,
No.
disgusting, frightening, terrorizing FBC, does it?
No,
Thank you.
not at all.
But I don't wanna telegraph something to the community that is contrary to what we're doing here. So I wanna be mindful about the fact that our residents, the majority of them at least, have been pretty consistently vocal about development and increased density. And so I wanna make sure that it's clear to our residents that are paying attention that we're listening. We know that, we have a duty to serve our voters. The memo, wasn't something that I think it caught us all a little bit by surprise. I didn't know this was gonna be on the agenda. And I don't wanna be in a position where I'm getting calls from residents who are concerned and then not have the answers. So I appreciate your clarification for tonight, but I wanna be mindful also about what we're telegraphing to the community. This isn't us undertaking some development project or anything like that. And we're here and we're educating ourselves.
Right, I mean, we want appropriate development, we need to bring more vibrancy to the hamlet. And I think that taking one application at a time is helpful. I mean, I would also like to see what these applications would be. I'm not sure whether I'm thinking whether it would be wise to wait on these changes and seeing what the applications are.
There will be no applications submitted under this code, they can't get past.
So they, okay, so
That's the
Okay.
problem, I can't give them appropriate guidance based on the way the code is written today to take advantage of the incentives.
I understand,
It also
okay.
We need to
might-
fix something that's broken and
So
then
they can't submit an application.
They cannot, no,
Okay,
it is
understood.
constitutes an
Right, so that's-
incomplete
that's a problem.
application.
It also wouldn't be advisable to have an application in hand and then make changes one way or the other, whether it's pro or against, you know, whether it favors or disfavors that application, because then there could be an implication that there was a motive behind.
No, we definitely don't want that, yeah, I
Sabrina,
agree.
if this was written in the 1990s or before, why, I mean, where have the applications been in all this time? Like, why are we just discovering that the language is so confusing that we can't figure out
I
the
can't
math of
answer
it?
that.
Have we ever
That's a good
had,
question.
have we ever
I
had an
haven't, I
application?
haven't seen them, no, there's
Approved
never
through
been an
this?
application that has come in to take advantage of these. And during my 13 plus years here, I have never seen an application come in to apply these
And then
incentives.
has the language of this been confusing before, like
Yeah,
ages?
oh, I'm sure it has, I'm sure it has.
So to be clear with the, sorry.
I mean, it's very confusing to me. I mean, I don't understand it at all. So I guess I'm wondering if there's a way for us to, I don't know, look at hypothetical properties in town and figure out what was meant by the existing language so that we can develop better language to reflect the same idea. I mean, do we really have no clue what the
There's one of two ways it can go, but it's making judgment calls that I don't think can be made based on the way the code is written.
And there shouldn't be, I mean, if I understand you, there shouldn't be judgment.
Yeah, I mean, why am I deciding this,
But
right?
I think Jen asks a very good question, I mean, we may
I
not
can
be
come
able
up
to
with a
give an
sample
example based on
project for
what's
you to
what it
see.
says now,
Like, it
but-
shouldn't be based on actual applicants, but if we just look at some properties maybe that exist and use it as a hypothetical, what was meant with the existing
I
language?
can't tell you,
I agree,
I
Jen.
cannot,
That would be really
I
helpful
can-
to a lot of people.
yeah, I can probably come up with a conceptual or a hypothetical project and show you the math and identify why I can't connect the dots
That would be helpful.
with the, under the existing code, and then show you what it would be with the changes, and then it will help you measure whether or not an incentive is too high or too low.
I think that would be a helpful exercise.
Yeah.
Me a lot.
Yeah, good, that's a good suggestion. Also, it occurs to me, with the minimum front yard requirement, I know that we have some legal non-conforming properties that have no front yards, but the
Well,
setback,
we don't
the
have,
current setback is 50 feet.
no, in the
Right.
BR and BRP, the front yard setback is 0. But I mean, it's within the right of way, it's just after the right of way.
Well, what
This
is
is
the language
requiring
here?
50 feet back from that, and given the depth and of the properties in the Chappaqua Hamlet, you cannot meet the standard.
But I think to
Wait a
Jen's
minute,
point,
there's language here, it says delete the minimum front yard in column 4, minimum yards from 50 to 0 on page 3 at
Yes.
the very end.
Yeah, this is the chart.
So can you tell me what that's referring to?
So the front yard in the MFR-C, right now, it's not the frontage, it is under minimum yards, the front yard setback. So in our residential zone, you have in the, 50 feet from the street to where you could build your building envelope, right? In the hamlet, I think your front yard is 0 or where available 30. I'd have to go back to the actual code. I don't know if you have it in your paperwork. But so if you look at what this is requiring in the MFR-C, which only can be within the BR and BRP, 50 feet puts you in the middle of those properties.
Okay,
So it defeats the purpose of an incentive, otherwise you're gonna have a really skinny building that
Okay.
has only 2 units.
Alright, but maybe it shouldn't be zero.
Right,
But
that
we
was
can-
what I was gonna say.
Right, well,
we
Maybe
can
there's,
talk
to
about
Jen's point about
Yeah.
how that would look, give us an example,
Practical
maybe we don't
example.
want 50, but maybe we don't want 0 either.
Right, you may want 10.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So we're not ready at all to schedule a public hearing for this. I think the next step should be to ask the planning board, maybe if they
I
might,
think the next
they
step
would
is for
think-
me to give you a sample of a hypothetical.
Great.
Because the planning
Well,
board,
okay.
to send, you have to decide whether or not with that hypothetical, you feel comfortable proposing certain things, or there are specific questions that you want the planning board to weigh in on.
well, I think, so we'll get that from you soon, but our next meeting will be after the spring break. So that's a long time, so I think we should schedule a meeting with the planning board. In the meantime, we'll have time to receive that from you. And then we can schedule a meeting with them
I mean, after spring break.
for after spring break, right?
Well, they meet
Uh,
on
otherwise,
opposite weeks
A
than you
lot
do,
of,
so.
you know, a lot of time will have gone by.
So maybe into May.
Work session?
So our next meeting will be on April 22nd. Then we have a meeting on April 29th. But yes, that's
Oh, that's
a
right.
dedicated meeting for Verizon to come in and
That's right.
talk about cell service for anyone interested. That's the 29th.
Since it's an off night for the planning board, I'd like to give them a little bit of notice for them to come in.
Right, that's why I'm saying you
And I need
should,
some time
we
to
should
come up
tell
with
them,
hypotheticals, you know,
we
to
should
all
tell
the
them right away
information.
so that they can see if they can schedule that.
Right, so
That
maybe
would
you
be
wanna go
helpful.
into May.
Like the 13th.
Oh, you're saying the 22nd is too soon?
You need me to come up with some schematics and whatnot for you to react to. I'm not gonna have enough time for the 22nd.
Okay,
I'm okay
so
with
should
May.
we say
Yeah,
May
me too.
6th?
We don't meet this.
May 6th isn't the meeting,
That's the 13th.
13th.
Okay.
Okay.
And you want that to be at 7 p.m., that joint meeting?
Yep, that sounds good. Does anyone have any other questions on this? No?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
If there are people who are here to discuss this is a work session. So we don't take public comment during work session, but we'll have public comment very shortly, so please stay and you're free to ask your questions at that time. Okay.
I would also just like to request the context around
Yes, that too.
this as well. Like some things you said were like they're referenced here is defined here. If possible.
I'm gonna give you the whole code.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, the next go around in preparation of your joint meeting, I'll provide the whole
Okay.
the whole code section so you can understand the circular referencing that needs to happen and you can understand the different provisions within the code. And because this is just a portion of that code.
Yeah, I feel like I was missing a lot of context to understand what I was looking at.
Okay, and we
Okay,
asked you a lot of
thanks.
questions, Sabrina, but I just
No,
wanna
it's
say
good.
thank you for working on this. I know that, the language is a problem, so it's important to do this right.
No
Okay,
worries.
thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go through some administrative items, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay, we have retroactive payment of claims dated March 25th. We have authorization to use town property, ready to pedal. This is a class they teach kids how to ride bikes. They've done it in the past, they've requested to use town property again. Similarly, Camp Nabby is requesting to use the train station parking lot for a drop off and pickup. They've used that in the past as well. We have authorization to approve the youth officer IMA with the county. We get a reimbursement of about $4,700 from the county for that. We have the authorization to enter into a contract with NYSERDA for the clean energy projects. In the packet, Sabrina detailed about $250,000 grant award from NYSERDA that covers EV charging stations, installation of a heat pump at the art center, purchase of an EV, and some electric landscaping equipment. We have authorization to extend the bid contract for DPW with Thal Industries. These are highway maintenance materials. And Jeremy, we have an authorization to accept our auction bid results for asphalt millings, an entire $25.
It adds up.
Any questions?
I had no idea this was a special thing.
Yeah,
For you,
just like,
Jeremy.
yeah, it was dormant, and I think we must have $300,000, right?
Yeah, Jeremy's always liked to track the auctions. Usually they're get a little bit more money.
All right,
What is an
Really?
asphalt
That does a
milling?
lot.
It is.
So once they when they're replacing road work, when they kind of grind up the top surface of the road and millings and I guess there's an aftermarket for it.
So it's like this
25.
scraps
Yeah.
from the
road.
okay.
Yeah.
Just- usually it's a vehicle, that's why I was
Usually it's a vehicle that we auction, yes, correct. Any other questions?
Questions?
No.
No, we're all set. So,
Thank
okay, thank you very much. So at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn the work session and convene the town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night,
Okay, good night, Sabrina, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now officially at our town board meeting. Rob, any announcements?
Nope, no announcements.
No announcements? Okay, I will hold my supervisor's report for the town newsletter coming out on Thursday. Anything for the administrators
Yep,
report?
I just have a couple things for the administrator's report. Happy to report the fields are now open as of last weekend. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't so cooperative. Hopefully it will be going forward, but our fields are open, including back at Gedney. I just want to remind everyone that the military tribute banners, we're still accepting applications for those for this year. Those open on April 1st, they close on April 15th. I think there's a link on the website if anyone is interested, or you can contact Lauren. She'll give you any further information. And I wanted to just point out that we have started our work on Shether Road, the reconstruction of that road after we had a washout on the side of that due to Hurricane, one of the I's, either Ida or Isaias, but one of those. They've been doing work out there now for a week or two. Next week, I think that road is slated to close for several weeks after that. So we will send out a nixle notifying residents of that, and we will have the electric signboards posted to remind everyone.
Okay, all right, thank you, Rob. And next on the agenda, we have a proclamation for Arab American Heritage Month. The board had determined that we would recognize cultural heritage months recognized by the federal government. We've done a few in the past. We've last year we started in May, I believe. We had Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we had Jewish American Heritage Month, and I know that in the past, prior to the time I was on the board, Jeremy, you might remember we did the board recognized Indigenous Peoples Month, or I believe it was a month. I'm not exactly sure what the board did at that time, but I know that resolution was.
We recognized
passed.
Italian American Heritage Month, I
did
know
that
we did
one too.
that one.
Okay, so we are very proud to honor Arab American Heritage Month in this month of April. And I will read the resolution, and I think instead of waiting to read over the resolutions at the end, we could vote on this at this time.
Sure.
Okay, so whereas in 2021, President Joe Biden became the first US president to officially recognize the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month, and whereas the town of Newcastle values and celebrates the diversity of cultures and heritages that contribute to the strength and vibrancy of our community, and whereas in the month of April, we celebrate the rich history, culture, and heritage of Arab Americans and acknowledge the many contributions to the cultural diversity and economic vitality that enrich American life. And whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have made significant and lasting contributions to American society in fields such as medicine, law, business, education, technology, public service, and the arts. And whereas thousands of Arab Americans have served honorably and with distinction in the United States Armed Forces, demonstrating their unwavering commitment to our country. And whereas Arab Americans have shared their diverse traditions and cultural practices with neighbors and communities, fostering mutual understanding and enriching the American cultural landscape. And whereas Arab Americans have faced civil rights challenges and harmful stereotyping, which must be addressed through education, community engagement, and a commitment to equity and justice. And whereas Arab Americans join all Americans in striving for a peaceful, inclusive society in which every individual is treated with dignity and respect. And whereas the town of Newcastle is honored to count Arab Americans among its population and proudly recognizes their significant contributions both within our town and across the nation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Newcastle Town Board hereby proclaims the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month in the town of Newcastle and encourages all residents to learn more about the history, culture, and contributions of Arab Americans and to celebrate the rich diversity that strengthens our community and our nation. Okay, and so now I would like to ask for motion to approve this resolution proclaiming April as Arab American Heritage Month in the town of Newcastle.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That was very nice. All right, okay, next on the agenda is a public comment period. So anyone with public comment, please feel free to come up to the microphone and welcome.
Hi everybody, my name is Cynthia Seamus and I'm here tonight representing Belonging Newcastle. Belonging Newcastle is an independent grassroots organization focused on providing a voice and representation for all residents of Newcastle, especially those who have been marginalized, dismissed, and disenfranchised. We are not afraid to stand up for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our 180 members come from every walk of life and every racial, religious, and socioeconomic background. We've formed a coalition around our shared set of beliefs in fairness, compassion, and courage. We share a specific focus on advocating for and protecting the rights of everyone, regardless of their race, color, religion, gender, or sexuality, abilities, or socioeconomic position, to be heard, included, respected, and safe. We all deserve to belong. Our mission is to give our community members an inspiring, collaborative, results-oriented way to engage and to turn their values into relevant action that makes a difference in our town. Our goal is for our members to take simple, powerful, coordinated actions, weighing in at critical moments when our values or rights are at stake and where we can make a difference. That's why we are creating Belonging Newcastle. This organization is not just about making statements, it's about making change. Over the coming months, we will work to create community-oriented programming and resources with subject matter experts. We'll work to develop new proposals for public policies or projects. And we will focus on connecting with and helping to inspire other local residents whose unanswered concerns may have made them feel like they do not belong. A few members of our 180-person citizen group are here with me tonight to introduce Belonging Newcastle to all of you. And we ask you, the town board, to partner with us and support us in our mission to foster true belonging in our community. We look forward to community cooperatively working with you to help create a better and more inclusive Newcastle for all of its residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, please come on.
Mine is more pedestrian.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Chazen, and I first of all am really here just to talk about the code that Sabrina was talking about. And first of all say I appreciate that you guys are asking good questions, that you're slowing down, and that you're saying that this is confusing and you don't understand it yet, because it's confusing and I don't understand it yet. But I want to just say a couple things. First of all, I'm a little concerned because the only map I can find online shows that there's a very small multifamily residential district, much smaller than they seem to be talking about. So I don't know if this is not correct, but the business development district and the multifamily district are not identical. And the overlay zone they're talking about, I'm not sure either. So I would really like some clarification on that. The other thing is, I keep hearing about how there are no plans, no one's come out to try to do anything with this possible new zoning changes. But if you go back to the March 4th planning board meeting online, just go look at that, and you'll see that there is a current King Street property owner at 211 King Street. He's a well-known person in town, very politically active, owns more than one property, and he has already submitted a concept plan for a multifamily project at King Street. This property currently is a 2-family, 5-bedroom house on 1/3 of an acre, and it's currently set back from the sidewalk pretty far under large specimen trees. Fine, no problem. What he wants to do is knock it down, build two-family buildings for a total of 4 units that would extend to within 3 feet of the sidewalk. And this is what he's looking for, and I don't think he's looking for a zoning change, I think he's looking for this law. And he wants to eliminate everything, eliminate the specimen trees. And if you look at it, he would be doing all this damage to take one 2-family, 5-bedroom unit and turn it into two-family unit for a total of 8 bedrooms. So you're going from 5 bedrooms to 8 bedrooms, but you're doing an enormous amount of damage. Plus, because it's only 1/3 of an acre, and the current zoning, as I understand it, says you can't do this unless you have at least an acre. So he's going down 1/3 to the size and trying to apply the same laws. And there are at least 8 other properties up and down King Street that if he gets this, they get this. Because you can't say, hey, you did it with 1/3 of an acre, oh, you have half an acre, you can't do it? Of course you can. So the problem is that he, by the way, owns more than one piece of property, so guess what? It's not gonna be one piece. So my concern is, I'm no problem, I know you think of me as like anti, multifamily housing. I am not. I am in favor of a multifamily housing. What I am against is the zoning changes that take away the sense of trees, the small houses, the setbacks, the green space. And when you drive down King Street, that's what you feel. And one of the things that started me to be politically active was when the streetscape came along and they took all the big trees down. They took that beautiful canopy that defined King Street and Chappaqua and they eradicated it and they turned it into a concrete slab. And now my fear is with this law, and I know Sabrina's saying, oh, there's no properties out there that that's just already applying to. Not true. Okay, that's just categorically not true. The intention is to take all these properties, at least 8 of them, put them right up to the sidewalk, build them doubly dense, and eradicate those trees, and it will completely change the hill. Plus, as I said, I'm not actually sure from looking at the map that this is even in the multifamily residential district. So I'm really unclear because this March 4th planning board meeting claims that it not just he, but the developer, the concept plan was filed and said it was in the multifamily residential district. The person speaking said it was in, and yet my maps say it's not.
Where is this property, Suzanne?
It's 211 King Street. So it's if you were picturing it, it's like a gray building near, King Street Salon? It's like the building next to it. It's a house, kind of goes up a little bit, and it's pretty far back, and there's some big specimen trees. You go on Google Maps right now,
Is
you'll
that the one that was
recognize it right
sold
away.
recently?
I'm sorry?
Is that the one that was sold recently?
No.
Oh.
It is owned by, you
But
will
it-
guess, and I'm not gonna say. But it's just a house, and it's 2 families, it's got big trees in front. He owns a property across the way, also really nice property, 3/4 of an acre. They're not gonna have, and it's got beautiful green space and trees. And now I will say that along King Street, some of the properties do go right up to the sidewalk. They're grandfathered that way. But if you notice, many of those properties that go right up to the sidewalk have a lot of green space behind them. So you're still not getting that density that you're gonna get. So I do appreciate that the board is gonna take this slowly and understand that it's not just a, why are we doing this now? Oh, I don't know, I think this is a good idea. We're doing this now because there are developers who have been itching for this for a very long time, and they're gonna try to find any way they can to do this. I'm not against the development, but I'm against the changes that this would bring. You wanna change your setback from 50 to 20? Okay. You wanna change it from 50 to 0? I don't think so. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else for public comment?
Quick study you
So I'm just going to say regarding the prior speaker that the town board most definitely values inclusion and hearing from people on their different perspectives and what they experience in town. We hope to foster a sense of unity and belonging in our town. We have a committee on inclusion and belonging where we recognize all people and all cultures, all faiths, and recognize that every single last one of us is deserving of respect, regardless of our race, ethnicity, religion, identity, every single last one of us. There is no monopoly on this by anyone. And it's also not a zero-sum game. I know that some have argued that if we look out for certain groups, that means we don't care about others. I have never understood that argument. It's not a zero-sum game, it's not a pie. We have an infinite capacity for compassion and understanding. And that's what we expect, that's what we ask of all of our residents. And if the entire world were to recognize that, I think we would be in a wonderful place. I'm very proud of our Committee on Inclusion and Belonging, and they have done a lot of they're beginning to do different kinds of outreach. And some of you will hear from them, and eventually, hopefully, we'll go from small gatherings to larger gatherings. It's sometimes difficult to predict when you're planning for meaningful connection. And that's what our committee is working on. They are working slowly. No one is here to make grand statements or any kind of grandstanding from our committee. They are working very hard in the background to bring about mutual trust and mutual understanding and empathy and true authentic connection. So we are very proud of the work that they're doing. And we encourage you to be supportive of them when you encounter their efforts. And we'll be hearing more from them. I don't like to get ahead of our committees, but I just want to say that I greatly respect the work of our Committee on Inclusion and Belonging. And that's all I'd like to say about that. If anyone wants to add anything.
I'll just
welcome
second what you've just articulated. I agree. I'm very proud of the work that the Newcastle Committee on Inclusion and Belonging, just to articulate the name of the committee, just to be clear about that. The work they've been doing slow and steady work. They've been vetting their work, being very thoughtful about it, doing a lot of research, getting training. So again, I just want to reiterate, if you do hear from the Newcastle Committee, I just want to encourage residents to feel comfortable in responding and being open to the programming that they're bringing forth.
Yeah, and I do regret that the people who were here and the speaker left right after they spoke. It would have been really nice for them to hear what we had to say, considering that we do have a town committee on inclusion and belonging. So I really regret that they spoke and they left immediately.
And it's not to say,
listening.
Vicky, that another, organized group in town, a set of citizens can't do, work out there. It's just distinct from what the town is doing.
Yeah, I mean, we welcome people of goodwill and good faith who want to do this work. So that is always welcome.
And there
Okay.
are a lot of community-oriented projects, proposals, education sponsored by the town. There's ample opportunity for residents. If inclusion and belonging or cultural events are important, there's ample opportunity. We're here, we'd love to hear from you. So to suggest otherwise would be wrong.
Okay, we have another comment, welcome.
Hi, my name's Ann Angowitz. I just wanted to thank the town board and the town for what they're attempting to do. And it's very much appreciated by the residents here. I'm not sure why some feel a need to do a separate private inclusion group. To me, that's sort of an ironic use of the term. I do wanna say that I have felt in this town a certain level of vitriol and pushback and people unwilling to listen recently. I think it's been noted not just in our town, but by people considering whether or not to move to this town. I've lived here since 1992 or 3, and I've never seen it like this. There are public or semi-public forums where people are accused of hate speech or of all kinds of things where they're merely stating a different point of view. I think that's really a shame. I think Chapacua should be known as a community where we all listen to one another, even when we don't agree. Sometimes we can agree to disagree. I think we should be an open place for people of all races, all religions, all backgrounds. But that doesn't mean we need to be divisive and set up our own little separate camps. I think we're all people from Newcastle. I think we're all Americans, and we should be proud to all be together. That's my comment.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to come and make a public comment? No? Okay. All right, so we will close this public comment period. Thank you to everyone who spoke.
Did you want to check if anyone was online?
Yes, okay. Anyone online for public comment? Okay, so we'll close the public comment period. Okay, thank you, everybody. So now, we will get to our consent agenda. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. Rob, do you want to go over the consent agenda?
Sure. Consent agenda, most of these were administrative items. We have the 2 authorizations to use town property, the Ready to Pedal and Camp Nabby. We have the authorization to approve the youth officer IMA. The authorization to enter into contract with NYSERDA for the clean energy projects. The authorization to extend the bid contract with Thal Industries for highway maintenance materials. And we have the authorization to accept the auction bid results for asphalt millings.
Okay, thanks, Rob. All right, so let's get started. We're ready for our resolutions.
Kick it off, Holly.
The audience is gone.
I know, what happened?
Just when it gets
I know, it never happens.
Why did we not get?
I move to adopt the items 1 through 6 as listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $508,061.96 listed on the summary AP check register and detail voucher detail report, both dated March 25th, 2025. Checks were printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead, Ally.
I move to authorize the posting and hiring for the position of recreation assistant within the Recreation and Parks Department at the annual salary ranging from $52,528.14 to $72,137.71.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the appointment of the following individuals to the Arts and Culture Committee for a 2-year term effective February 13th, 2025 through December 31st, 2026. Lori Hoffman, Roberta Lasky, Lisa Nisman, and Carolyn Simpson.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead.
I move to authorize the hiring of Benjamin Millerman for the position of student intern within the town clerk's office for a total stipend of $2,000 for a period of 6 weeks effective May 5th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jen, you wanna take the last one?
Sure.
Spread it out.
Do you want me to read everyone's names or just? Okay. I move to authorize the hiring of the following individuals as recreation attendants within the Recreation and Parks Department to serve as 2025 summer camp staff effective June 30th, 2025. Names listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.